Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 29. 6 months ago, I moved into the guest apartment of a mansion to work as a handyman for a family I thought I'd never really know. Then, one night after a charity gala, the wife leaned close and whispered, "For one night, can we pretend we're married?" And I said, "What if I don't want to pretend?" She smelled like citrus and sandalwood, and when she slipped her wedding ring off later during a storm, I could see the pale line on her finger where it used to sit. She never said she loved me, and I never asked her to leave. But every time I drive past that house now, I still check to see if the porch light is on. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I pull off the road and kill the engine. Rain drums against the windshield, blurring the lights of the house at the end of the cul-de-sac. The porch light flickers once, twice, then holds steady. I shouldn't be here. I haven't worked there regularly in weeks. I moved out. I took other jobs. I told myself I was done. But some nights, when I'm driving home from my mom's place or finishing up at some stranger's house, I find myself taking the long way. Past the gate, past the security guard who still nods at me like I belong, past the perfect lawns and expensive cars and the life I was never supposed to touch. And I end up here, watching that light. If I'm going to tell this right, I need to start at the beginning. Before the gala. Before the storm. Before she ever asked me to pretend. Before I realized pretending was the one thing I couldn't do. It was a Tuesday morning in May when I first pulled up to the Carter house. Bright sun, blue sky, my truck rattling like it might fall apart at the next red light. I was 29, broke, and desperate for steady work. My mom's medical bills were piling up faster than I could cover them, and the odd jobs I'd been scraping together weren't cutting it anymore. The security guard at the gate checked my name against his list and waved me through. I drove slowly, taking in the neighborhood. Every house looked like it cost more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes. Runners with expensive dogs, gardeners working in silence, Mercedes and Teslas in every driveway. I felt like an imposter before I even parked. Marcus Carter met me in the driveway. Tall, well-dressed, talking into a Bluetooth headset about closing the deal and pushing the timeline. He shook my hand without really looking at me, then waved toward the house. "My wife will show you around. I've got a call." He disappeared inside before I could respond. I stood there in my cleanest work shirt, toolbox in hand, trying not to feel like I'd already failed some test I didn't know I was taking. Then she appeared at the top of the front steps. Simone Carter. 44, though I didn't know that yet. Black, beautiful in a way that felt careful. Like she'd learned to carry herself through rooms where people were always watching. Heels clicking on stone, hair pulled back, a silk blouse and tailored pants that probably cost more than my truck. But it was the way she moved that caught me. Smooth, controlled, like she was always performing for an invisible audience. "Mr. Cole?" Her voice was warm but professional, the kind of voice that made you stand up straighter. "Ethan. Just Ethan." She smiled slightly. "Come in. Let me show you what needs fixing." The house smelled like citrus and sandalwood, expensive candles burning in rooms no one was sitting in. Everything was marble and glass and sharp corners. Beautiful, but cold. Like a hotel. She walked me through each room, pointing out squeaky doors, loose cabinet handles, a flickering light in the hallway. She knew exactly what was wrong with everything. I got the sense she'd made a list weeks ago and had been waiting for someone to actually listen. "We also have a guest apartment above the garage," she said as we stepped outside. "It's small, but it's yours if you're interested. Part of the compensation package." I tried to keep my face neutral, but my heart was pounding. Free housing meant I could finally get ahead. Help my mom. Stop living paycheck to paycheck. That would be great. She studied me for a moment. Not suspicious, just reading me. You seem thorough, she said quietly. And you don't talk just to fill the silence. I appreciate that. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Marcus reappeared as we finished the tour, glanced at the rate sheet I'd written up, and casually offered me more than I'd asked for. We need someone we can trust long-term, someone who's actually here. I accepted on the spot. That evening, I carried the last of my boxes into the apartment as the sun set behind the mansion. It was small but clean. A bed, a couch, a window that looked down at the pool and the back patio. Through that window, I saw Simone alone in the kitchen, moving quietly, putting away dishes. Marcus's voice echoed from somewhere deeper in the house, still on a call. I lay down on my new bed and stared at the ceiling. I had no idea what I'd just moved into. The first week was a blur of routines. The security system chimed every morning at 6:30 when Simone disarmed it. I'd hear her heels on the tile downstairs, the hum of the coffee maker, the soft clink of her wedding ring against ceramic mugs. Landscapers came on Mondays and Thursdays, a cleaning service on Wednesdays. Simone's assistant dropped off paperwork most afternoons. Marcus left early, came home late, and spent most of his time in the house on phone calls or locked in his office. I fixed cabinets, gates, squeaky hinges, small things that had been ignored for months. Simone was polite but distant. She corrected me gently when I called her ma'am. Mrs. Carter is fine, or just Simone when it's the two of us. Noticed things about her. The way she moved through the house like she was checking boxes on an invisible list. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes when Marcus kissed her cheek on his way out the door. The way she paused sometimes in doorways, like she was deciding whether to stay or leave. One afternoon, I overheard her on a video call in her office. Something about a charity gala, donor tables, sponsorship tiers. Marcus was supposed to join the call, but he got stuck at the office. She didn't look surprised. That night, I called my cousin Jake from the apartment balcony. Man, this place is insane. You should see the kitchen, marble counters, wine fridge, a fridge just for wine. Jake laughed. Careful, Ethan. Don't get too comfortable. You're just the help. I know. But I didn't know. Not yet. A few nights later, my phone buzzed around 9 p.m. Simone, calling about a clogged garbage disposal. I grabbed my hoodie and headed downstairs. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing loose pants and a silk blouse. Her makeup was mostly gone. The citrus and sandalwood candle burned on the counter. I tried to fight with it, she said, half smiling. The disposal won. I knelt by the sink and got to work. While I was under there, I heard her on the phone with Marcus, trying to talk about the gala. He was half listening, distracted, promising to write a check and show up. She ended the call with a quiet, "Okay, drive safe." When she knelt beside me to hold the flashlight, I got a clear look at her profile. The way she pinched the bridge of her nose, the cadence of her voice. Something clicked. I knew her. Not from here. Not from this house. From before. I finished the repair and tested the switch. The disposal roared to life. She laughed, pressing her hand over her heart in relief. Thank you. I thought I was going to have to call a plumber. No problem. Her wedding ring caught the light as she moved. A thin band. Simple, but it glinted like a reminder. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I dug through an old box I'd brought from my mom's place. Paperwork from years ago. a housing dispute that almost got us evicted when I was 14. The letterhead said Carter and Associates. The attorney who saved us was Simone Carter. I sat there on my bed, holding that paper, replaying her face in court. The way she stood up for people like us, people who couldn't afford to lose. She didn't remember me, but I remembered her. And the gratitude I felt. It was already twisting into something else. The following week, Simone was deep in gala prep. Seating charts covered the dining table. She was on speakerphone with her friend Renee, laughing about floral arrangements and impossible donors. Renee showed up in person with coffee. Tall, sharp-eyed, quick with a joke. She noticed me on a ladder, repainting part of the stairway, and gave Simone a curious look. "So that's the new handyman?" Simone waved her off. "Stop." But Renee filed it away. I could tell. Later that day, I overheard them in the kitchen. Renee asked about Marcus. Simone deflected. "He's busy. You know how it is." "Mm-hmm." That evening, Marcus came home early for once. Dinner was tense. I was in the hallway, close enough to hear. "You don't have to attend our life, Marcus," Simone said quietly. "Just show up once in a while." He didn't answer. A few days later, Simone found me in the garage. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How comfortable are you in fancier environments?" I blinked. Depends?" She smiled slightly. "I need someone at the gala who can blend in but also handle questions about the house if donors ask. Would you be willing? You'd need a suit, but we'd cover it." "I have a suit." "Good." She paused. "I'm asking you because you're observant, and you don't talk just to fill the silence." That compliment landed harder than it should have. "Yeah, I can do that." That night, I hung my one suit on the closet door and smoothed out the wrinkles. Jake called and joked that I was living in some movie. I stared at the suit and thought, I'm just working a job. But the idea of standing next to Simone in a ballroom wouldn't leave my head. The morning of the gala, Simone hosted a small brunch for key donors. I helped set up chairs on the patio, refilled water pitchers, stayed in the background. She moved through the event with practiced grace, laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny, flattering men who barely looked at her when she spoke. Marcus arrived late and spent most of the time on his phone in the corner. One donor, a middle-aged man with too much cologne, made a comment about Simone being lucky to have Marcus bankroll her little projects. I saw her jaw tighten. She smiled and thanked him anyway. I wanted to throw him into the pool. After everyone left, we ended up cleaning up together in the kitchen. She made an offhand comment that hit me like a punch. "Sometimes I feel like the help in my own house." She laughed it off immediately. But I didn't. Marcus walked in, grabbed a soda, and asked me about minor repairs like nothing deeper was happening. That night, lying in bed, the hum of the pool filter steady outside my window, I replayed that line. Sometimes I feel like the help in my own house. I stared at the ceiling and realized I was starting to care too much about problems that weren't mine. 2 weeks later, the night of the gala, I stood in my apartment adjusting my tie in the mirror. Downstairs, the security system chimed as the Carters left. I drove separately to the hotel. The ballroom was massive. Crystal chandeliers, live music, everyone in black tie, everyone performing. Simone looked stunning in a long gown. Marcus worked the room like a politician. I spent the evening helping coordinate small emergencies. A spilled drink, a broken centerpiece, a missing microphone. I watched Simone glide through conversations while Marcus barely looked at her. Then, near the bar, a donor cornered her. Older. Married. Too close. "Finally getting a moment alone," he said, smiling. Simone's face froze. I moved without thinking, stepped close, placed my hand lightly at the small of her back. "Honey, they're ready for us." The donor blinked, assuming I was her husband. Simone leaned into the act instantly, sliding her hand up my arm. "Sorry, we have to run." We walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. When we were clear, she whispered, "For one night, can we pretend we're married?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. "What if I don't want to pretend?" She looked at me, really looked at me. Then she laughed nervously and turned away. "Thank you. For the save." We stood on the curb later, waiting for the valet. Marcus was still inside. City sounds low around us, our hands almost but not quite brushing. The bomb had been dropped, and neither of us knew how to defuse it. Part 1 of 2. Watch Part 2 to find out what happens next. F. Canteen. We shared a shuttle back to the parking garage. Late, quiet, city lights reflecting on the windows. Simone sat next to me in the back row, heels in her hand now, her feet sore. The citrus and sandalwood perfume lingered in the still air between us. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Really, that donor, he's been pushing boundaries all month." "Does Marcus know?" She looked out the window. "Marcus expects me to handle those situations." My chest tightened. We reached the parking garage, stood between our cars. The concrete was cold, echoing with every small sound. I almost told her then, about the pro bono case, about watching her in court when I was 14, about how she saved my family and never knew it. But the night already felt too charged. "We should probably just act like that didn't happen," she said softly. "The pretend thing. It was just to get rid of him." "Right. Just to get rid of him." Her eyes said something different. 20 minutes later, I was back in my apartment, suit jacket on the chair, staring down at the driveway as their car pulled in. I watched Simone and Marcus walk up the front steps together. Their silhouettes didn't touch. I lay awake for hours, the hum of the pool filter loud in the silence. Nothing felt like just pretending anymore. The next morning, I forced myself into my routine. The security chime sounded as Simone disarmed the system. I went downstairs to do scheduled repairs, bracing for awkwardness. She was in the kitchen making coffee. Her wedding ring clinked against the mug. "Morning." "Morning." We were polite, professional, strained. Over the next week, we settled into a new rhythm. I fixed a patio door, replaced tiles in the guest bathroom, helped her carry boxes for gala follow-up paperwork. We had small conversations about music, old neighborhoods, bad coffee, nothing overtly romantic. But I started leaving small touches, making sure her office chair didn't squeak, leaving her preferred tea by the kettle after late nights. She noticed, didn't always comment. But she noticed. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone with that same donor. Her voice was cool and firm now, setting boundaries. When she hung up, she caught my eye and gave a slight nod. I handled it. I felt something shift in my chest. That evening, I video called my mom. She asked about the fancy job, said she was proud of me. After we hung up, I looked out my window. Simone was alone at the patio table, scrolling her phone, pool lights reflecting on her face. I thought about going down. I didn't. Not yet. 2 days later, Simone asked me to fix a doorknob in her home office. The room smelled like paper and her perfume. I worked quietly while she sorted through old files. On her desk, I saw a framed law degree, a photo from her attorney days. The logo on a folder matched the one from my childhood paperwork. My hand stilled. "Mrs. Carter, can I ask you something?" She looked up. "Of course." I swallowed. Years ago, You represented my mom in a housing dispute. I was 14. We were about to get evicted. Her eyes widened. She set down the file slowly. Cole. Your last name is Cole. Yeah. She stood, moving closer. I remember that case. Your mom. She was working 2 jobs. The landlord was trying to push her out to raise the rent. You saved us. We got to stay. I got to finish high school in the same place. My mom still talks about you. Simone pressed her fingers to her lips. Her eyes shimmered. How is she now? She's managing, health issues, bills, but she's tough. We sat down together. The repair forgotten. Simone admitted she left law partly because of burnout, partly because winning for strangers didn't fix anything in my own house. I heard the hurt under that line. You helped us, I said quietly. That mattered. She smiled, but it was sad. Thank you. I needed to hear that. That night I stood at my window again, watching her on the phone in the backyard, voice low, animated, talking to Renee about old cases and nostalgia. The gratitude I felt had shifted, from distant hero worship to something much riskier, and I finally admitted it to myself. A week later, a storm rolled in. Thunder, rain lashing the windows. Then suddenly, the power cut out. Everything went silent except the storm. The security system emitted a warning chime, then went dark. I grabbed a flashlight and headed down to check the breaker. The main floor was black except for emergency lights. Simone was in the kitchen, phone flashlight on, wrapped in a cardigan. I hate the dark in this house, she admitted quietly. I checked the breaker box. Tripped switch. I reset it, but another surge knocked it out again. Might need to wait it out, I said. She looked around the cavernous kitchen. Can we wait in your apartment? This place feels too big when it's like this. We climbed the stairs to my small living room, lit candles, sat on my worn couch. Simone pulled a blanket over both of us, more for comfort than warmth. We talked about childhood homes, favorite memories, regrets. She confessed she almost dropped out of law school once. Too exhausted. Too broke. I confessed that watching her fight for my mom is why I believe in good people with power at all. She reached up and slipped her wedding ring off, threading it onto a necklace. So it doesn't snag on the blanket. I stared at the pale indent on her finger. Our shoulders touched. The rain pounded the roof. The attraction was thick in the air, undeniable. But we didn't cross the line. We just sat there, close, breathing the same air. Eventually, the power flickered back on. The security system rebooted with a familiar chime. Simone stood, slipped the ring back onto her finger. Thank you. For the company. She walked to the door. Paused. Good night, Ethan. Good night. I stood in the doorway, watching her walk back across the driveway. Lightning haloed her briefly. I knew just employer and employee wasn't true anymore. The next morning, the house felt different. We both carried the quiet knowledge of that night. Over the following week, our conversations grew more personal, more coded. Day 1, Renee dropped by. Simone and I shared a private joke about the storm. Renee noticed the ease between us. Day 2, Simone accidentally made too much coffee and slid a mug toward me. Day 3, we organized the garage together, laughing over Marcus's dusty college trophies. Day 4, I walked in on a tense argument between Simone and Marcus about his travel schedule. After he left, Simone steadied herself before facing me, trying not to overshare. Day 5, Simone helped me understand an insurance letter from my mom. She reverted to her legal voice. I was deeply grateful. Small touches built, fingers brushing when exchanging items, standing close at the kitchen island late at night, me offering my hoodie when she stepped onto the cool patio. One night, as I turned off the kitchen lights after a late repair, Simone paused in the doorway. "Thank you for making this place feel livable." The way she said "this place" sounded heavier than just the house. She walked upstairs, leaving me alone with the dimmer switch glow, feeling the "we" that neither of us had named. A few days later, a car door slammed in the driveway. I looked out from a ladder and saw a young woman hugging Simone. Tiana, Marcus's daughter, home from college for a short break. Inside, Simone introduced us. Tiana gave me a polite but assessing look. She clearly cared about Simone, was protective. Over the next couple of days, I watched Tiana slot into the household. Late breakfasts with Simone, quiet tension with Marcus, occasional chats with me about music and school. She started noticing things. The way Simone smiled, more when I was around. The way I instinctively grabbed Simone's favorite mug for her. The shared references to the storm. One evening, the three of us ended up in the kitchen together. Tiana teased Simone about finally relaxing, then casually asked me how I liked working there. When I answered, Tiana's eyes flicked between us, sensing undertones. That night, from her bedroom window, Tiana spotted Ethan and Simone talking quietly on the patio in the half-dark, my hoodie around her shoulders. Tiana pulled her curtain back and exhaled slowly, realizing something was forming that nobody was saying out loud. Saturday afternoon, Simone invited Renee and Tiana to brunch on the patio. I grilled while they talked. The atmosphere was light, but subtext was everywhere. Renee joked about having front-row seats to everything that happens on the cul-de-sac. She hinted about seeing me working late nights. Tiana picked up on her tone. Simone deflected with humor, but her shoulders were tight. Later, Renee pulled me aside under the pretense of asking about a repair at her house. "How are you liking living above the garage?" Her eyes were sharp with curiosity. I played it neutral. "It's good. Steady work." "Mm-hmm." That evening, I looked out my apartment window and caught Renee standing in her own kitchen. Lights bright, looking directly at the Carter house. She raised her mug slightly, like a toast, then turned away. I realized we weren't just worried about Marcus anymore. The neighborhood itself was paying attention. 2 days later, Marcus returned from a business trip in a foul mood. I was called to his office to check a security camera with a fuzzy signal. While we worked, he asked casual questions about my schedule, especially late-night maintenance rounds. Then he paused on a frame. Simone on the pool deck around 1 a.m. a few nights prior. My hoodie draped over her shoulders. Me standing close, hands near her elbow. Both faces soft. Marcus didn't hit play. He just stared at the frozen image. Anything I should know? My heart slammed. There was an issue with the pool heater. Mrs. Carter couldn't sleep. I checked it out. Technically true, but incomplete. Marcus held the moment, then smiled thinly. She likes to worry. Just make sure my energy bills don't go through the roof. He changed the subject. I left the office shaken. Marcus suspected something, even if he couldn't or didn't want to name it. That night at dinner, the atmosphere was off. Simone sensed Marcus's unusual attentiveness. I was stiff, fixing a dim light in the dining room. Tiana watched all three of us in silence. Later, Simone texted me. "We need to be more careful." I stared at the text. Knowing careful might not be enough. The next morning we talked in the pantry, away from cameras. "He saw the hoodie moment," I told her quietly. Simone panicked, blamed herself. Said we let it get too blurred. "Nothing happened," she insisted. "But the appearance is already too much. We need distance, for both our sakes." The rest of that day, everything shifted. She became brisk, formal, calling me Ethan in a clipped tone. Marcus was overly polite, almost friendly. Tiana was cooler, watching Simone with concern and me with warning. That evening, I returned to my apartment after finishing tasks. On my kitchen counter sat an envelope, my name in Simone's handwriting. Inside, a generous bonus check, a glowing letter of recommendation, and a formal notice. My live-in position was changing to as-needed, non-residential, effective in 2 weeks. I sat at my small kitchen table, the envelope open, the hum of the pool filter oddly louder. Simone wasn't just pulling away emotionally, she was physically pushing me out of the house. My phone buzzed, Jake asking about grabbing a drink. I typed back, "Yeah, I think I need one." The next morning, I went downstairs with a knot in my stomach. Simone was in the kitchen with a legal pad, avoiding my eyes. Marcus had already left. Tiana was still asleep. "This isn't about your work," she said quietly. "It's better for the boundaries of the household." I nodded, playing professional, but my chest was heavy. The next 2 weeks crawled by. Day 3, I packed boxes in my apartment, still doing repairs downstairs. Day 5, Tiana pulled me aside. "Are you leaving because of something my father did?" "Just logistics," I lied. She didn't look convinced. Day 8, Simone and I were in the same room multiple times, interacting minimally, the air thick with unfinished conversations. Day 12, Renee mentioned seeing moving boxes. Simone shrugged it off with a forced smile. On my last night, I stood in my emptied apartment, mattress on the floor, suit jacket on a hanger. I looked across the driveway at Simone's lit office window. She passed by, paused, as if she felt me looking. But she didn't draw the blinds. The distance between us had never felt wider. The next day, I loaded my truck. Simone was at a charity meeting. Marcus shook my hand, thanked me for everything. Tiana hugged me quickly. "Don't be a stranger." I moved into a small apartment across town, closer to my mom. Jake helped me carry furniture up narrow stairs. "You gonna tell me what really happened?" he asked. I didn't answer. Over the next 2 weeks, I took on extra jobs, trying to fill the financial hole and emotional void. I visited my mom more, brought groceries, fixed small things in her building. I still had occasional scheduled visits to the Carter house, always daytime, always with someone else around. One afternoon, as I left after fixing a guest bathroom, I glanced up. Simone was watching from an upstairs window. Our eyes met. She stepped back out of sight. I drove away, realizing distance doesn't equal closure. A few days later, I was driving home from my mom's. I found myself taking the long way. Past the gated entrance. Past the security guard who still nodded. I didn't go in that night, but the pull was obvious. Over the next week, I repeated the pattern twice. First night, I parked just outside the gate, told myself I was just checking traffic. Second night, I drove all the way to the cul-de-sac, idled for a minute, then left. Jake called me out at a bar. "You're not done with that place, or with her." I admitted I didn't know what done even looked like. One night, sitting at a red light near the Carter neighborhood, my phone buzzed. Bank alert. The bonus check clearing. I stared at the notification, feeling like I'd been paid off for something nobody would name. The light turned green. I turned toward the cul-de-sac instead of home. I parked on the far end of the street, lights off, just watching, noting the patterns. Marcus's car arriving late, Renee's kitchen light going off by 10, the pool lights switching modes. Over the next several evenings, I continued, never getting out of the car. I saw Simone come home in workout clothes, shoulders tense. I saw Tiana's car appear and disappear for short weekend visits. I saw Renee walk across to drop off food, both women laughing on the porch. I never saw Simone with anyone in a way that looked romantic, which comforted and unsettled me. One night, as I was about to leave, the porch light flickered. A quick double flash, then steady. My breath caught. It reminded me of the storm. I told myself it was just bad wiring. But the moment stuck. The following week, Marcus sent me an official work request, a list of minor repairs. We scheduled Wednesday afternoon. I arrived to the familiar security chime. Pool hum, citrus and sandalwood scent. Simone was out running errands, according to the housekeeper. Marcus was in his office on calls. I moved through my list like a ghost. Late afternoon, Simone returned with grocery bags. Our interaction was brief, polite, formal. She thanked me but didn't linger. As I packed up in the dim kitchen, I noticed something tucked into my tool bag. A folded note. Familiar handwriting. I didn't open it there. Back in my truck, heart pounding, I unfolded it. Written on household list paper. Kitchen dimmer switch keeps flickering after midnight. No signature, no explanation. I sat in my truck, the note in my hand. The clock read 11:43 p.m. I told myself I didn't have to go. At 11:52 p.m., I picked up my keys anyway. I drove back to the Carter cul-de-sac, heart racing, neighborhood dark and quiet. I used the still active code to unlock the back door. The security system chimed softly. The kitchen was lit only by the flickering, dimmer light over the island. Warm half-shadow. The citrus and sandalwood candle burning. Simone stood at the counter in a sweatshirt and leggings, ring on her finger but turned inward. I checked the switch, the wiring, the panel. Everything was fine. The flicker seemed almost intentional. We both knew this wasn't about the dimmer. We talked in low voices, unpacking the weeks apart. I miss feeling like someone in this house sees me, she admitted. Not just my role. I've been driving by, I confessed, just to make sure the light's still on. Neither of us asked the other to leave their existing life. We stood on opposite sides of the island, hands resting on the same countertop, a few feet apart, but feeling closer than we ever did on that couch. I flipped the dimmer off and on. The light steadied. Simone stepped around the island, stopped near me. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure I wouldn't. Our eyes locked in the dim kitchen. We kept talking, minutes blending together. The house silent except for the hum of the fridge, the distant pool filter. Simone explained how the guilt had been eating at her, not just toward Marcus, toward herself, for wanting something that wasn't on paper hers to want. I confessed that no other house felt like this one. We acknowledged the imbalance, the danger. I won't leave my marriage, she said quietly. I never expected you to. The honesty stripped away pretense, leaving raw connection. Then, in the quiet, Simone stepped closer. Without asking, she gently leaned her forehead against my shoulder. Eyes closed, soft. I didn't move my hands, staying still, letting her borrow my steadiness. No kiss, no embrace, just one stolen, fragile touch that meant everything and changed nothing. After a few seconds, she stepped back, wiped at the corner of her eye. You can bill me for the dimmer. Outside, a car door slammed. Maybe a neighbor, maybe Renee. We both startled, reminded of where we were, who might be watching. I left through the back door, turned once to see Simone framed in the kitchen doorway, arms folded, face unreadable. As I reached my truck, the porch light flickered twice, then steadied. I sat behind the wheel, chest full and heavy, knowing this wasn't a beginning or an end, just a line we'd have to carry. And now I'm here again. Same rainy night, same truck, same flickering porch light. It's been weeks since that kitchen reunion. We didn't start an affair. I still work as needed. Daytime only. Simone has kept things cool but kind. An unspoken pact of silence about that night. I don't know if Marcus suspects more, if Renee put the pieces together, if Tiana will someday ask Simone outright. All I know is when I drive by, I still look for that light. I watch as Marcus's car pulls up. Simone comes out to help with a box. They move around each other like practiced partners. Nothing outwardly wrong. Nothing obviously right. I don't know what label to put on what we had. It wasn't a relationship. Not exactly. It wasn't just gratitude. And it wasn't nothing. It was a version of myself that only turned on when her light did. We never called it anything. We never promised each other a single thing. But every time that porch light flickers after midnight, I still find myself answering to a name that was never really mine. I start the engine, pull away slowly, one last look in the rearview mirror. The Carter house. Porch light steady. Kitchen dimmer glowing faintly inside. Some vows you say out loud. Some you only break in your head.